gnomes, elves, and
Abhorrent.
humans.
Spectacular range.
The best damn barbecue ribs you ever did.
Turtle.
Anchors.
Achten
Tan. Best ribs and worst ribs.
Achten Tan.
Achten Tan.
Episode 3. Readings and Enticements.
Hey, welcome to Sounds from the Year Between. I'm Terry, this is Dee. Let's start talking.
Let's start talking. And let's talk first about Volume 1 of Achten Tan. We've sold over 125 copies in physical form and a whole bunch more in digital form, and they are all over the world.
And if you can believe it, not only is Achten Tan obviously super awesome, but, well, Tales from the Year Between's second volume is officially pre-production, I think it's safe to say. We had way more really high-quality applications than we were expecting, and picking our final crew was super difficult, but we now officially have a contributor roster for Volume 2. So Year Between is going cool places.
All started by Chris, our editor-in-chief and Grand Hierophant. All hail! But you're a Chris too, right, Terry? Can we talk about that?
Well, yeah, but, we can talk about that later. Right now, we've got to get listening. Although, what are we listening to? I know we're going to be listening to Elvira Canaveral reading an excerpt from their piece Achten Tan Days from Achten Tan, Volume 1 of Tales from the Year Between, available in all good bookstores. But it's a little, there's a lot of footnotes and things. This is confusing, Dee. Tell me about it.
Something you should know is that Elvira is writing in Minnesota, the home of Garrison Keillor and Lake Wobegon. I grew up listening to NPR radio program Prairie Home Companion, where Keillor told his gentle tales of a Midwestern town, each piece and person a part of a greater whole. Elvira managed to take that feeling of detail and attention and transpose it onto Achten Tan, our own fictional hometown.
Oh, I see. We're part of a literary tradition. How fancy. That's nice. For your listening pleasure, everybody, this is an episode basically just of readings from the book, and we hope you enjoy it very much because they're all really good and you should buy the book. I'm going to keep telling you to buy the book. Here's Elvira Canaveral with some of their piece, Achten Tan Days.
An excerpt from Achten Tan Days by Garrus, son of Keillor, translated by Elvira Canaveral. No place like Bone. The village of Achten Tan lies at the source of the Everfall, the edge of the boneyards looking west across the blue-green water to the Darkmere Woods. Right on the road to the southern caves, then to the Achten Tan or resting place, 4,223 altitude, 542 population, named for the ancient bone body which defines its borders. Bleakly typical of the boneyard, Achten Tan has its possible origins in the utopian vision of mu-elemental alchemists, but now it is populated mainly by gnomes, elves, and humans who attend services at the House of Birth and House of Rebirth, neither of which are remarkable outside of their advertising. The source of the Everfall flows from the blue-green and brightly sparkling in the brassy summer sun and neighbored by the warm-colored moss teeming from the source, quickly changing colors as expanded to the bright light. The view is somewhat spoiled by a large god tree in the Everflow. North of the town is the Boneyard region. Howling Judd's Guide to the Boneyard, 2nd edition. From the south, the ancient way of the Lost City aims for the Everfall, bends hard left to the magnificent bone towers, and eases over the leg of the hill past the Navartan, the Underplace. Bringing the traveler in on the Bone Boulevard, the village's one road, an ancient spine worn flat by foot traffic. The tall towers of ribs shade the Bone Boulevard. Along the ragged dust path between the spine and ribs, a child slowly walks to the east skull gate, kicking a chunk of bone ahead of her. It is a chunk that, after kicking for 3 ribs, she is now mesmerized by, and to which she is completely dedicated. At the Gant stables, the dry spine begins. A breeze off the Everfall brings a sweet air of mud and rotting wood, a slightly musky smell, and picks up a sweetness of old grease, a sharp whiff of alcohol, fresh giant ants, gants, spring dust, and from the other side of the tower rib, the faint essence of carbon serpent, At the North Ribs ribs, a stout figure in green coveralls disappears inside. The girl kicks the chunk of the spine once, twice, then lofts over the spine across the bone boulevard of dark oil pumps. She jumps 3 times on the Gnomeseum bell hose, marking 3 dings in their dark workshop. The magistrate of matters material, Clink Gnomesum, peers out from the grease pit under a black, tard-powered carriage. Her brother Clank, wiping the signage clean. Nauseum momentums, Fenord, new and ancient, created and fixed. With part of an old human sock, giant in his hand, knocks hard back 3 times in response. The girl follows the chunk back north to the North Ribs, which displays a mournful bone serpent, its body's marked with a number of cuts. The village had a usually friendly, rarely deadly, for Achten Tan, rivalry between North Ribs and South Ribs. There is debate, often among sectarian lines, who was the original Ribs, what the best rib, and what the components of the rival rib are really. The South sauce is the defining trait, or the hand and face wiping attendees of the colony of birth attest, while the colony of rebirth argues that the sauce is to cover the sins of the South, and that their dry rib is superior, with their sauce being applied meagerly to their enchanted North Rib. This is rumored to harden you for the desert travel and offer recovery after injury, especially after intoxications. Travelers in the local secret and public double ribber do support the claims of North ribs as well as South sauce slither, which may or may not feel like one slipping in time. The issue being that the time slippage is not apparent to anyone involved in the process, with the exception of the staff of the South Ribs, who claim to keep a running but secret tally of all the slippage. But as part of their curse/enchantments, they cannot reveal this information, as to do so is said to cause the cavernous underground to collapse and send us all tumbling in terror from our beds. The North Ribs claims that it also carries a variety of calamities befalling inhabitants of Achten Tan, ranging from rib collapse to the long-dead beasts they reside in returning to life and running off the Everfall to shake off the parasites.
I love that. It's like being transported to a place that really feels like it should be real, you know? Like, there's so much in there, and some of it even shows up in other stories. It all feels interlinked and connected and real, and I absolutely adore that Elvira did it this way. It's just so good.
And there's so much more in the book itself. Each author used their own style and imaginings to create a whole that, well, I've never seen anything like it. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or available to order at your independent bookstore.
Yeah, you can help out your local brick and mortar independent store or whatever by asking them to order a copy for you to buy. You can do that. You can just go in and say, please order this book. Jeff Bezos has enough money. Give money to the people who need it.
You also can ask your local store to bulk order now, purchase them all, and give them to your friends and families for the holidays to confuse them with our fantastic world. It is an option. So, now will he explain how you are Chris, but not Chris?
Not now, D. It's time for a Kickstarter ad.
Hi, I'm Chris Van Dyke, founder of Skullgate Media and editor-in-chief of Tales from the Year Between. I and the rest of the team at Skullgate would like to invite you to join us when we start work on the second volume of this fantastic anthology series, because this time, we're blasting off into space. There's going to be a sentient alien spaceship, a crew of intrepid space marines, and, well, we actually can't tell you what else will be in it, because we don't actually know yet. That's what makes Tales from the Year Between so exciting. Each time we make a book, we start from scratch. We get a brand new group of writers from all around the globe to create a brand new and unique universe. The results are imaginative, startling, and utterly unpredictable. If you back this project, it's because you want to read a book of fantastic science fiction, and that's what you're going to get for your pledge. The book, in either a digital format of your choice or paperback, or if you're a great fan, both. As a backer, you're ordering the book now, when we most need the money to actually produce the book. You're also ensuring that more of your money goes directly to us, the creative team behind the book, and not to some massive corporation. So this book is going to be amazing, but only with your help. We have a variety of pledge levels to match your budget and enthusiasm. However you decide to support us, thank you for joining Skullgate and what promises to be a thrilling intergalactic adventure. Welcome aboard.
What I guess we probably ought to tell you, because the audio didn't say, is where you can actually find this Kickstarter's page. So Kickstarter's Kickstarter page. So let me tell you about that. The audio that you just heard, by the way, comes directly from a video on the Kickstarter page, hence why it doesn't say where you can find it. Because, you know, if you're listening to it, you should already have found it, but we didn't consider that. Anyway, you can in fact visit that page by entering the following thing into your URL bar thingy. Are you ready? Here we go. So it's bit.ly/kickstart TFYB 2. That's the number 2. So bit.ly/kickstart TFYB 2. Obviously, there's more info on that page, but the long and short of it is basically that you can help us to make Volume 2 super professional and great. So, thanks.
Or tinyurl.com/spacekick. That works too. We've actually done way better than we ever expected. We're over 170% funded, which means that not only are we going to be able to give you a great volume of stories with the art that you've come to love and expect, but we'll even be able to pay the people who contribute to it. But you can still keep supporting us, because we can do even more cool things then. Now, let's hear some more awesome writing from Volume 1. Here's Darius Beargard reading the first couple of pages from his piece, The Sand Runner.
The Sand Runner by Darius Beargard. Oh, by the tree. The younger guard trails off, prompting the older one to tip his hat back and take a gander. The gate into Achten Tan faces east into the surrounding barren wastes. It takes a second to scan the horizon, so whatever has the younger one bothered is from within. The older guard tips his hat back down over his eyes. What is it, Trip? The half-elf guard rolls his eyes, seeing the quarry, approaching slowly. That Antler kid, what's his name? Titan? Edian, the old man corrects. Figures. End of the week, you could set a watch on it. We should turn him away, shouldn't we? I ain't doing it. Come on, Leslie. Trip almost chokes, pretending to cough as his superior tips his hat back to glare at him. Halberd, sorry. But, I mean, come on, he's a kid. Leslie Halberd, to anyone who wants to keep their hands unbroken, puts his hat back over his eyes and returns to leaning on his chair. He's been guarding the Skull Gate for the last 8 months. He's one of the oldest soldiers in Achten Tan. He was there when the Ant Cavalry formed and the first patrols went out. He knows every man, woman, child, and otherwise that has ever come and gone in this city. And he knows Eddie Ann Archambault is the last person they need to worry about being in the wastes. Stop him if you want to, Trip. Kid'll get out either way. Trip rolls his eyes at his superior, who clears his throat, almost like he saw it. Trip slowly peels his eyes away from the old man and looks at the kid. He's maybe 4 lengths tall, knobby-kneed, and all skin and bone. Blonde hair hangs down in front of his eyes. His clothes are ratty, and his wide-brimmed hat has a chunk missing, likely from an ant that he got too close to. Tied across his body is a harness made of iron and leather, which is lashed to a large metal sled filled with tools and other contraptions Trip has never seen before. The weight looks considerable, especially when the boy's size is taken into consideration. But despite that, or perhaps in spite of it, a huge smile is plastered on his face. Trip is about to yell a warning when Eddie Ann yells up to them both. Hi, Trip! Hi, Mr. Halberd! How the hell did he know we were up here? I told you we could set a city watch by him. The old man can be heard grinning under his hat. He shouts without turning around or removing his hat from over his face. How goes it, kid? Off to play in the sand again? Yeah, the boy says, nodding. You know, I think it was the metal last time. When I went down the dune, I got good momentum towards the end, but then I couldn't get the motor running fast enough, so I found something a little lighter, and I made the spindle bigger so I can... Oh, by the tree, does this kid ever shut up? Trip says, talking over Eddie Ann, who continues to prattle on. Nope, you two could be twins. Halberd can be heard grinning again. So I'm hoping that gives enough torque, but maybe not. It's impossible to test in the hard pan in town because there's not enough green in the ground for the paddles to get. Halbert grins, knowing the boy will go on like this until he's too far away to hear, and even then he'll probably still be talking to himself. As the boy passes, the old man tips his chair back a bit more to get a look at the kid. The kid tries to hide it. Can't hide a bruise that big, though. Every so often the kid would come through the gate with a fresh one, and Halbert would ask. Etienne always had the same answer. Sometimes the answers get away from me, but the old guard was good at reading people. The boy continues chatting away. Wouldn't that be amazing, though? Like, if I could get something to push me through the desert? Like, that would be awesome, but maybe not super practical, because while it's pushing, it'd also be pulling sand into my... Halbert smirks and shakes his head. Listen to the young man go off into the desert.
Terry, I'm getting the feeling that you're reluctant, that you don't think it's important that we know why you are called Terry. Do you want to talk about that feeling?
I would absolutely love to. But first we have to give some updates on the God Tree.
Ah, I tried. Here's a little reminder of something we talked about last time, and then we'll hand over to Vin Labat to explain how he approached writing a story concerning the God Tree.
Previously on Sounds from the Year Between.
Index. Achten Tanian of the day. Saphira. She. Her. Young kitchen worker who discovered hallucinogenic godfruit paste and popularized its recreational use in some cities.
So, one of the first steps in a game of the Quiet Year is going around and having each player add something to the starting landscape. Since there were 30 of us, we did this by throwing ideas into a spreadsheet and then voting. I think I offered up like a disused trade road or something. But one of the things that won was a massive tree, which pretty quickly got dubbed the God Tree by someone. I think maybe Chris named it in between the voting and the actual start of play, but given the nature of this whole affair, you should probably consider that apocryphal. My first turn came around pretty early, and the prompt I drew was, a charismatic young girl tries to tempt many into a sinful or dangerous activity. Why does she do this? How does the community respond? And according to the document here, my response was, though generally unpalatable, a human girl named Saphira has discovered that the fruit of the God Tree, when dried, boiled, and mashed into a paste, can induce pleasurable hallucinations. She and her friends take it recreationally. The community looks down on this, although some speculate that it might have more spiritual applications. Part of the reason I went with a hallucinogenic paste was because I generally enjoy psychedelics as a theme or a motif, but part of it was also that since I had one of the first turns, I wanted to add something to the world that could be used in a lot of different ways. In particular, ways that weren't standard fantasy story elements like wars or political intrigues or even adventures. I wanted to add something that could be used in street-level stories about criminals or counterculture. When I started my actual writing, I had intended to write a little kind of romantic, psychedelic slice-of-life story involving the Godfruit paste. I had it all plotted out and some little bits written, and then I had a big old flare-up of executive dysfunction, which I get as a symptom of ADHD, and I couldn't actually functionally write for several weeks. So when the deadline started looming, I did what I frequently do when I have this kind of situation. I scrapped it and wrote something entirely different. An incomprehensible animal is a lot closer to the format of writing I do for my podcast, which is short, in-setting fictional documents like journal entries, bits of speeches, or advertisements. In this case, it's excerpts from a poet's journal over the course of the year in which our game took place, structured in the Japanese haibun style, which is like a chunk of prose followed by a little haiku. After struggling with my other piece for weeks, this one took me like 2 days, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I even managed to incorporate some elements from my original story, which I may still go back and finish someday, if the stars align.
Terry, it's time. The people deserve to know the truth.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess I can explain in the next episode of Sounds from the Year Between, coming soon. Okay, all right, this was good.
All right, Terry, that was smooth, but fine. Thanks for listening. We'll be back very soon with more Sounds from the Year Between, and maybe we'll just have to find a way of focusing all on Terry so you can't escape.
Factum est bonum, baby. See you next time.
Iuis, factum est bonum. Factum est bonum indeed.
Alright, let's show a little bit of love to our contributors this episode. Didn't they do a good job? Like, seriously, everything this episode was just people reading pieces that they wrote, and those pieces are so good and also read really well. So thank you to everyone who sent in stuff, and those people are...
I'm Elvira Canaveral, and so can you. Find out more about what we do at Sintire.com, shoes mindfully made at Proanoia.com, books, plays, and comic books at Pincombo.com. We can get linked in at wordcrimes.com. You can get some nice clothes over at theoffensive.com. We can do some streaming together and talk about games at gameofdepth.com. And if you need a new belief system, cultofthemonth.com.
Hello, my fellow anchors of Achten Tan. I'm Darius Bearguard. I like long cruises across an ocean of sand, eating burgers made from the brains of giant ants, and you can find me at OSTBear on Twitter.
I'm Vin LeBate. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Reciprocity or on The Chimera, an actual play RPG podcast, which you can find on Twitter at ChimeraPod or at thechimera.space.
That was Sounds from the In-Between, the singular podcast by Skullgate Media. Skullgate Media is a pretty new independent writers collective that's, going to do some really cool things, so pay attention to that, I guess. Our founder and editor-in-chief is Chris Van Dyke. This episode of Sounds from the In-Between was written by D. Gagliardi with a very small amount of help from Chris Durston, and edited by Chris Durston with quite a bit of help from D. Gagliardi. All the music you heard in this episode was written by one of those two people, or both working together, except for the stuff that you heard in the advert for the Kickstarter. Those two pieces come from YouTube's royalty-free library, and they are called Everywhere You Know by Jeremy Black, and either The Six Realms by I Think I Can Help You, or I Think I Can Help You by The Six Realms. I'm not sure. Thanks to those guys anyway. Your hosts for this episode were, of course, D. Gagliardi and Chris Durston, but really we didn't do that much work, so thank you to everyone who sent in stuff for this episode. To find out more, please visit yearbetween.com or skullgatemedia.com, because we do some really cool stuff, so you should, and that's all I have to say about that. Goodbye.